I mean, it was initially not even on the table. It wasn't a thought in my mind at all whatsoever.
So that's the voice of Chelli Look, and she is talking about the F word, forgiveness. She's got a new documentary out called Dusk, and in this new documentary, which you can see on Tubi and Amazon, she is showcasing probably the most difficult thing that she's ever had to deal with in her entire life, which is losing her sister to a domestic violence episode. And what she is talking about in this particular clip is the act of forgiving the person that did that. I know, it seems heavy. It seems impossible. Hi there, it's Matthew Blades, the host of Learn from People Who Lived It. And every single week, we release a full-length episode, and then we release a quick tips version of it a week later, just so you can get a sense of, like, I guess the premise is, if I only had 5 minutes with you, what would I want you to know from this podcast? And there's no doubt that her journey to forgiveness, because remember, forgiveness isn't a one-time act, it's a process, is just spectacular. And so we are going to pick up the story right here in the middle, where she is talking about she's really talking about the very first time that she heard God kind of say to her, hey, you should pray for this guy.
That I believe I heard the voice of God in that time of worship say, pray for him. And when I heard that, everything in me shut down. It was like, I could leave right now. I don't need to be here anymore. I was angry. I was livid. I was upset. And I didn't bring it up with my husband until several weeks later, because to even utter the thought was nauseating to me. To think of doing something like praying for somebody. Prayer is so sacred. And it's almost like a love language on its own. So to do that aimed at somebody who I wanted the exact opposite for, felt like a crazy move. Like, it wasn't even a thought to even consider. And I shared it with him because it was just kind of, when you just have a certain idea or a thought and it just won't leave you alone. It was like that. It just wouldn't leave me alone. And once we started to build relationships with people, I eventually shared this with what came on to be a good friend of mine. And she was very supportive in I don't understand the circumstance, but I'm here to support you. And I want to say it was probably about a year after initially hearing that it was like a grueling process of me in a crying fit on the floor. I got out one sentence of prayer. One sentence of prayer. It took me a couple hours. But and nothing illuminating happened in that exact moment, but I could tell that there was a shift in me. There was a shift in me because something that I had thought was that if I were to pray for him, it would be somehow me dismissing what he did or somehow permissing what he did. And that thought was so nauseating to me. And so anytime I would get a flicker of the thought of pray for him, it was literally just one sentence at a time. And then I just remember one evening where I was really just bothered with it. And we happened to be with a group of close friends from that church at the time. And I just felt it was almost like this thing that just needed to come out of me. And I remember asking them, I think I need to pray for him publicly. Will you all stand around me and just pray over me while I do this thing? And not even fully understanding it, but it just was gnawing at me. And so I started to pray, and in that prayer is the first time any utterance of forgiveness came out of my mouth. And I spoke just like a releasing over him and a forgiving and a letting go. And I don't remember all the exact words of the prayer, but the premise of it was just like a full release from my mentality, from any control it had over me. And the experience that I can only describe I had was as if this heavy aura, this heavy cloud, it was like it lifted off of me. And it was so liberating. And I forgot to add in the point that even prior to this, I was having trouble sleeping. I would have tormenting thoughts every single night that would keep me up to where I would exhaust myself at night just to be able to get some rest. But after the releasing, it was whatever lifted off of me was it cracked the code for me getting rest. I could sleep again. The violent things that would go through my mind ceased immediately. It was this total shift of life from letting him go and not letting it have a hold on me. And a lot of that was conquering the fear of thinking that that forgiveness in some way makes it okay. But really the act of forgiveness was a liberating work for me to no longer let that act have such a grip on my life, and especially not on my mind.
Think about what she's saying right there. It cracked the code, so I was able to sleep. Violent thoughts stopped. A total shift of life. Like when I get on stages and I talk to people about forgiveness, that's the stuff I make sure I highlight. Like, of course it's going to be difficult. Of course it's going to be a process. Of course you might need to reach out to a community like she did and have a bunch of people there supporting you in those moments where you're on, the beginning stages of the journey. But what I want you to focus on is what you're going to feel like afterwards. All right? Think about that. And if you want to dive into her episode, I encourage you right now to jump back. It's just the episode before this one in your feed, and you can have a listen to me, Dr. Dave, and Chelli Look here on Learn from People Who Lived It. As always, don't forget to send this to somebody who you think needs to hear it. And of course, you can find us online at learnfrompeoplewholivedit.com if you want to reach out and touch someone. Have a good day, guys. Thanks for being a part of our community.